The message appeared on the ship's console at exactly 0200 hours, a single line of soft blue text blinking in the dark. Could I be expecting human? Lieutenant James Carter almost dropped his ration spoon. For a few seconds, he just stared at the glowing words. The ship around him was silent, the hum of the engines low and steady. Outside the viewport, only endless stars stretched like a silver ocean. He blinked once, thinking it was a glitch, but the message stayed there, pulsing gently, patient, almost shy. And it was signed with a name that made his heartbeat stop. Sarah. Sarah wasn't human. She was an Alari, a tall, silver-skinned species known for their calm minds and crystal-like eyes. Her people were explorers too, like humans, but more disciplined, more logical. They believed in reason, in balance, in understanding the universe without emotion. James had spent the last 8 months serving beside her on the deep space research vessel Endeavour. They had worked side by side in labs and observation decks, sharing long nights of quiet conversation. Over time, something had formed between them, something neither of them fully understood. And then, one night, during a lonely orbit around an empty moon, the line between curiosity and feeling had blurred. It was never planned. It was never meant to happen. But it did. Now this message, could I be expecting human, made everything inside him twist with fear and disbelief. He pushed away his food and stood, his heart pounding. That's not possible, he whispered to himself. The Endeavour's hallways were quiet as he walked toward the science deck. The faint light panels cast long shadows. His footsteps echoed in the silence, mixing with the hum of distant engines. When the door opened, Sarah was standing near the viewport, gazing out into the dark. Her skin glowed faintly under the starlight, and her long silver hair floated around her shoulders like a halo. She turned slowly as he entered, and her eyes, liquid glass always calm, now shimmered with something he had never seen in her before. Emotion. Sarah, James said softly. What did you mean by that message? Her voice was quiet, musical in the still air. I do not know how to explain, James. I have been feeling changes within me. Changes. He took a step closer. You mean, she nodded. I am Alari. Our biology and yours are incompatible. It should be impossible for anything to form from our contact. And yet I feel something inside me, a new rhythm, a pulse that is not mine. James's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to laugh, to tell her it was absurd. But her voice was steady, and her eyes were not lying. He moved closer, almost without realizing it. Sarah, that can't be real. Human and Alari cells can't even merge. The science is wrong, she interrupted gently. Or incomplete. Life finds its own paths, James, even through the cracks of reason. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The stars outside seemed to hold their breath. James rubbed his face, feeling the cold sweat on his skin. You're saying you're pregnant? The word felt heavy, almost strange in his mouth. Sarah's gaze softened. Your word does not fully describe what I feel. But yes, something lives. Something ours. The silence stretched again. Only the soft hum of the ship filled the air. James stared at her, at this being from another world who had shared his loneliness and his laughter. He remembered the night they had held each other, not as alien and human, but simply as two souls lost in the dark. And now this? He took another step closer until he could almost touch her. Sarah, if this is true, we need to tell the captain. The med team, no. Her tone was suddenly firm. They will not understand. They will fear it. And fear destroys what it cannot explain. Her eyes glowed faintly like molten silver. I came to you first, James, because I trust you. I need you to believe me. James swallowed hard. Sarah, I want to. But this changes everything. She smiled softly. Perhaps that is the purpose of it. He looked at her at the calm, shining light in her eyes, and for the first time he didn't see an alien. He saw something fragile, brave, and alive. Someone standing at the edge of the impossible, asking him not for proof but for faith. The hum of the ship deepened, and somewhere far below the stars outside began to shift. James reached out his hand, slowly, hesitantly, and Sarah placed hers over it. Her touch was warm, almost human. "I will find the truth," he whispered. "And I," she said quietly, "will carry it." Outside, the void watched in silence, and in that small, dim-lit corner of the Endeavor, something greater than science had already begun. The next morning, the Endeavor floated in perfect silence between the stars. The crew carried on with their routines, unaware that two souls on board carried a secret that could change everything. Lieutenant James Carter barely slept. He had spent most of the night staring at the ceiling of his quarters, listening to the soft hum of the life support systems. His thoughts chased themselves in circles. Sarah's words, her calm eyes, the trembling in her voice when she said, "Something lives, something ours." He wanted to tell himself it was a misunderstanding, a strange Alari biological cycle, or some kind of data glitch. Anything that made sense, but deep inside something told him it was real, and that terrified him. When the ship's clock reached 0700 hours, he left his quarters and walked toward the science lab. The corridors of the Endeavor were quiet and silver-gray, filled with the faint scent of recycled air. Every sound, his footsteps, the distant hiss of vents, felt louder than it should. He stopped outside the lab door, took a long breath, and stepped inside. Sarah was there. She stood near the large circular viewport, watching the endless stretch of stars. Her long silver hair shimmered faintly in the light. The reflection of galaxies painted soft colors across her metallic skin, and for a moment, she looked like she belonged to the stars themselves. When she turned, her face was calm, but her eyes held that same strange emotion he had seen last night, something fragile and beautiful. "James," she greeted softly, her voice smooth and melodic. He nodded. "Sarah, I couldn't sleep." "I understand," she said. "Neither could I." There was silence between them for a moment, a silence thick enough to feel. James rubbed the back of his neck. "Sarah, I've been thinking about what you said, about feeling something inside you." She tilted her head slightly, a gesture humans found oddly graceful. "And I think we should run tests," he said carefully. "Real medical scans. Maybe it's some kind of reaction or something else." Sarah smiled faintly, her lips curving in a way that still caught him off guard. "You think I am imagining it?" He hesitated. "I think you might be confused, or your body might be reacting to human contact in some unknown way." She walked closer, her movements light and fluid, like someone floating underwater. "I have studied Alari biology since I was a child," she said. "I know my body, James, and this is new. I feel it, like a heartbeat that does not belong to me." James's heart ached at her words. He looked at her, searching for doubt, for any sign that she might be mistaken. But there was none. Her eyes glowed softly, filled with quiet certainty. He swallowed. "Sarah, if this is true, then we've done something no one has ever done before." She nodded slowly. "We have crossed a line our species thought unbreakable." Her words made the room feel heavier. The hum of the ship sounded distant, as if even the Endeavor itself was listening. James stepped closer. "If anyone finds out, Earth Command, the Alari Council, they won't understand. They'll see it as a threat, Sarah." "I know," she said quietly. "That is why I came to you, not them." Her calmness broke something in him. He wanted to protect her even though he didn't know from what. He wanted to promise her safety even though there was no safe path left. He stared out the viewport. The stars drifted by like silver dust. "Do you feel afraid?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "No, I feel wonder. Whatever is growing inside me, it is not wrong. It is life, and life is never wrong." Her words hit him like a soft punch in the chest. He turned to her again, and in that moment he saw not a scientist, not an alien, but someone brave enough to face the unknown without fear. He took a step forward and his voice trembled when he spoke. "Then we face it together." Sarah blinked, surprised. "Together?" "Yes," James said. "You won't go through this alone. Not while I'm here." Something gentle passed between them. Something beyond species or language. Sarah's expression softened and she placed her hand lightly on his chest. "You would risk everything for this?" He smiled faintly. "I think I already did. The night I fell for you." For a moment, Sarah said nothing. Then she lowered her gaze, and he thought he saw her lips tremble, an Alari's version of a smile mixed with sadness. "Then may the stars guide us, James Carter," she whispered. He nodded slowly, his throat tight. "And may they forgive us too." Outside the viewport, a comet streaked across the dark, a flash of fire in the endless black. It lasted only a second, but in that second both of them knew their lives had changed forever. Two souls, one human, one Alari, standing side by side in defiance of everything their worlds believed possible. And somewhere, deep within Sarah's being, something tiny and new pulsed with the rhythm of two hearts becoming one. The days that followed were filled with tension and quiet hope. James Carter had seen many strange things in his years of space service. Black holes that hummed like living hearts, nebulae glowing brighter than cities. But nothing had ever made him feel so small, so human, as the mystery now growing inside Sarah. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Sarah had changed. At first it was small things. The way her skin glowed faintly at night. How her pulse sometimes flickered faster than normal. Then came the scans. Even the Endeavor's medical AI couldn't explain what it saw. An anomaly detected, it reported in its neutral synthetic voice. Cellular activity in subject Sarah no longer matches baseline Alari patterns. James leaned forward, gripping the console. Define no longer matches. New biological structure forming. Pattern contains partial human genetic markers. Silence filled the lab. Sarah sat on the examination bed, her hands clasped in her lap. She looked calm, but her eyes glimmered with deep emotion. James felt his stomach twist as he reread the data. It was impossible, but there it was, right in front of him. Human DNA, he whispered. "That can't be right." "There's no way." Sarah's voice was soft but steady. "You said that before, James." He turned to her, struggling to find words. "Sarah, do you understand what this means?" "You're carrying something, someone. That's half you, half me. That's not supposed to happen." She looked up at him, her silvery eyes filled with quiet light. "And yet it has. Perhaps the universe does not care for what is supposed to happen." He couldn't answer. He just stared at the glowing medical screen, watching the small rhythm forming on it, a pattern of pulses that looked too much like a heartbeat. For a long moment, there was no sound except the soft hum of the ship and that steady pulse on the monitor. James felt tears sting his eyes. "This shouldn't be possible," he whispered again, his voice cracking. Sarah smiled faintly. "Impossible things happen every day, human. You should know that better than anyone." He almost laughed, a broken, shaky sound, and sat beside her. "I've seen stars die, Sarah, but never anything this alive." Her hand brushed against his. The warmth of her touch felt more human than ever. Word spread quickly among the small crew of the Endeavor. Rumors whispered through the halls. About the strange readings, about the lieutenant spending every hour in the lab with the Alari scientist. Some crew members avoided them. Others watched with quiet curiosity, unsure whether to be afraid or amazed. But James didn't care. He spent every waking moment with Sarah, running scans, checking her vitals, and studying every new piece of data the AI recorded. The results grew more astonishing each day. Sarah's cells were transforming, adapting as if preparing to nurture something foreign yet familiar. Her crystal-like blood now shimmered with faint traces of red, human red. Her energy readings fluctuated, producing small waves of light that danced across her skin when she slept. James would sit near her and just watch, unable to believe what he was seeing. Sometimes Sarah would wake to find him still at her side. "You have not slept again," she would say softly. He'd shrug, trying to smile. "Didn't want to miss any miracles," she would laugh quietly, a sound so gentle it made his chest ache. But not everyone on the ship shared his wonder. One evening, as James walked into the command deck, Captain Rao called him aside. Her sharp eyes studied him carefully. "I've seen the medical logs, Lieutenant," she said coldly. "What's going on with your science officer?" James hesitated. "She's going through a change, Captain. Something we don't fully understand yet." Rao crossed her arms. "Rumors say she's carrying something." "That true?" James met her gaze. "Yes," the captain's expression darkened. "You realize how serious this is. Cross-species genetic fusion has never been recorded. If Earth Command finds out, they'll quarantine her, or worse." "I won't let that happen," James said firmly. Rao sighed, shaking her head. "You're a good officer, Carter. But this could end both your careers." He looked her straight in the eye. "Then I guess that's a price I'll pay." Later that night, James returned to the lab. Sarah was awake, sitting near the viewport again, her hand resting lightly on her abdomen. The stars reflected off her eyes like tiny worlds. "They know," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. "I felt the shift in the crew's energy. They are afraid." James walked up behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let them be. I'm not leaving you." She turned, her voice soft but sure. "You may have to." He shook his head. "Never." Sarah smiled sadly, her fingers brushing against his cheek. "Then whatever happens next, we face it together." Outside the viewport, a star exploded into light, a supernova blooming in the distance, beautiful and silent. James watched the light spread through the darkness, and for the first time in his life, he understood what Sarah meant when she said life finds its own path. It doesn't ask permission, it just happens. And sometimes it begins with love. The Endeavor drifted through the cold silence of space, but inside, the air had grown heavy with tension. Rumors had spread through the crew like wildfire. Some whispered about a miracle, others whispered about a threat, and at the center of it all were two people, one human, one Alari, and something inside her that should not exist. James Carter walked the hallways with a quiet storm in his chest. Every time he passed a crew member, he could feel their eyes on him. He heard fragments of their voices after he walked away. "They say it's alive. A hybrid? That's insane. What if it's dangerous?" He ignored them, but each word sank deeper than he wanted to admit. When he entered the lab, Sarah was sitting near the viewport again. She seemed calm, her silver eyes reflecting the swirling nebula outside. But he knew her too well now. Her calm was never just calm. It was her way of hiding pain. "Sarah," he said softly. "They know. The captain has reported everything to Earth Command." She didn't turn around. Her voice was quiet but steady. "And what did they say?" James hesitated. He didn't want to tell her. He didn't want to speak the words out loud, because once spoken, they would become real. "James," she said again, her tone soft but firm. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. "They've ordered the mission suspended. They want you isolated until a transport ship arrives. And if the hybridization is confirmed, they want it." He stopped. Sarah turned to look at him, her glowing eyes unreadable. "They wanted what, James?" He swallowed hard. "Terminated." The word broke something in the air. Silence filled the room like a storm waiting to fall. Sarah didn't move. She simply sat there, her hands resting on her stomach, her gaze distant. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled with something James had never heard from her before. "Sorrow." "I knew your people feared what they do not understand," she said quietly. "But I did not think they would fear life itself." James stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Sarah, I'm not going to let them do anything to you." "To it." She looked up at him. "You can't fight Earth Command, James. They have entire fleets. We are one ship." "Then we'll find another way," he said fiercely. "We'll leave. We'll hide." Sarah shook her head. "Running will only make them see us as fugitives. They will think we have created a weapon." James knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "I don't care what they think. I only care about you." For the first time since he had met her, Sarah's calm began to crumble. A faint shimmer formed at the corners of her eyes. Not tears exactly, but droplets of silver light. "You would throw away your world for me?" she whispered. He nodded. "I already did the moment I chose you." Sarah reached out and touched his face, her fingers trembling. "You are reckless, human, but your heart is stronger than any law." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence, steady and low, like a heartbeat echoing through the ship. Then Sarah leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "James, it is growing faster now." "I can feel it," he froze. "What do you mean, faster?" "The rhythm inside me. It is not just cells anymore. It feels aware. It listens when I speak." Her words sent a chill down his spine. "Aware? You mean?" "I mean alive, James, fully alive." He looked into her glowing eyes, and for the first time he saw fear there. Not for herself, but for what might come next. That night, James stood alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched before him, endless and uncaring. He thought of Earth, of the home he might never see again. He thought of Sarah, asleep in the medbay, and the small life forming within her. Something both human and Alari, something new. He clenched his fists. "They won't take this from us," he whispered to the stars. "Not while I'm breathing." The door opened behind him. Captain Rao stepped in, her face hard but not unkind. "Carter," she said quietly, "you've disobeyed direct orders by hiding data from command. They know now. They're sending a containment team." James turned, his voice sharp. "Containment? You mean destruction?" Rao sighed. "You don't understand, Lieutenant. If that child is unstable, it could endanger everyone on this ship." He shook his head. "You don't understand. That child is everyone's future." The captain studied him for a moment, then turned away. "I'm sorry, Carter. I truly am." When she left, the stars outside the viewport flickered like dying embers. James stood there for a long time, staring into the dark. Then slowly he made his decision. He would not let command decide the fate of the one miracle he had helped create. In the quiet corridors of the Endeavor, fear walked with every step. But beneath that fear, something stronger began to burn. The will to protect, the courage to defy, and the love that no universe could ever erase. The Endeavor was no longer just a research ship. It had become a cage. Every corridor felt colder. Every look from the crew carried quiet judgment or fear or pity. The orders from Earth Command were now clear. Sarah was to be placed in stasis until the containment vessel arrived. The specimen, and as they called the unborn hybrid, was to be extracted and destroyed. James Carter read the message twice, then deleted it before Sarah could see. He couldn't let her know. Not yet. That night he sat alone in his quarters, the dim lights flickering above him. His hands trembled as he stared at the navigation map glowing on his screen. There were hundreds of empty worlds around them. Forgotten moons, abandoned colonies, drifting stations. He could hide her somewhere, but to do that, he'd have to betray everything, his command, his duty, his entire world. He looked at the picture taped to the wall beside his bunk, an old photo of Earth, blue and bright. It no longer felt like home. With a slow, shaky breath, he whispered to himself, "She is my home now." When he entered the medbay, Sarah was awake. She sat up slowly, her silver hair falling over her shoulders, her skin glowing faintly under the soft lights. "You haven't slept again," she said gently. "Couldn't," he admitted. "Too much to think about." She smiled faintly, then looked down at her hands. "It grows stronger each day. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can hear thoughts, not words but feelings, warm, curious." James felt his chest tighten. "It's listening to you." "To us," she corrected softly. He knelt beside her, taking her hand. "Sarah, listen. Earth Command sent new orders. They're coming for you, for both of you." She went still. "Coming to take?" His jaw tightened. "To destroy." For a long moment there was only silence. Then Sarah's hand moved to her stomach, protective, trembling. "So it begins," she whispered. James stood up, determination hardening his voice. "We're not going to let them. I've plotted a course to a moon in the Vale sector. No colonies, no scanners. We can make it if we leave now." Her eyes widened. "You would steal the ship?" "I would steal the whole galaxy if it meant saving you," he said. She looked at him for a long time, searching his face. Then slowly she nodded. Then let us go, human. The ship's lights dimmed to red as the alarms began to sound. Unauthorized navigation override detected. Security alert. James's fingers moved quickly over the console. He rerouted power from the main engines to the escape pods, overriding every lock the captain had placed. The AI's voice echoed through the ship, calm but unyielding. Lieutenant Carter, this action is a violation of mission protocol. I know, he said through gritted teeth. Do it anyway. Sarah stood beside him, one hand on her abdomen, her other resting on his shoulder. They will come. I'll get us out before they can. The door to the bridge burst open. Captain Rao stood there, 2 security officers behind her. Carter, step away from that console. He didn't move. I can't do that, Captain. Don't make me give the order, she warned. He turned to her, his eyes fierce. You think I'd let you take her? After what we've seen? After what we created? Rao's face softened for just a second. James, it's not your decision. Maybe not, he said quietly. But it's mine to live with. He slammed the launch control. The escape pod doors hissed open. The deck shook as the engines roared to life. Sarah, go. She hesitated only for a heartbeat before stepping toward the pod. The light around her body pulsed brighter, as if reacting to the stress. The ship's panels flickered. The AI crackled in confusion. Warning! Energy surge detected in subject Sarah. Before it could finish, a blinding wave of light burst from her body, sweeping across the bridge like a soft explosion. When it faded, the security systems were dead, the alarms silent. Sarah's voice was weak. It protected us. James caught her as she stumbled. Then we need to move now. He guided her into the escape pod, sealed the hatch, and hit the release. The pod tore free from the Endeavor, spinning into the vast darkness. Through the small viewport, James saw the ship shrinking behind them, the only home they'd known now far away, fading into the sea of stars. Sarah rested her head against his shoulder, breathing softly. Will they find us? Not if I can help it, he whispered. Outside. The pod drifted toward a distant moon covered in violet sand and soft glowing skies. A place untouched, unseen and safe. Sarah's hand found his, her touch faint but warm. You have risked everything, human. James looked at her, his voice low and certain. For you, it's worth it. As the stars passed silently around them, the pod carried more than just 2 lives. It carried hope, the hope of a new beginning, born from love, defying fear, and shining quietly against the endless dark. The escape pod drifted silently through the endless dark until it touched down on a small violet moon. The surface shimmered faintly under a pale silver sky, and the air was still, quiet, peaceful, untouched. James helped Sarah out of the pod. The ground beneath them glowed softly as if alive. He had seen hundreds of planets, but none like this. There was no wind, no noise. Only the faint hum of light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It's beautiful, Sarah whispered. James looked at her. Her silver skin glowing faintly against the soft purple sand, her hair catching the light like threads of glass. Even now, weak and trembling, she still looked like something holy, but she was fading. He could see it in her eyes and the way her breath came slower. The journey had drained her strength. Whatever was happening inside her, whatever she was carrying, was growing fast, taking everything from her to survive. He built a small shelter using the emergency kit. The pod's AI had failed after the landing, so they were completely alone. He set up the heater, the oxygen filters, and laid her down on the soft blanket. Rest, he said gently. Sarah shook her head. No, it's time. James froze. Time? She smiled weakly. The child knows we are safe now. It is ready. He felt his blood run cold. Sarah, I don't have medical gear for this. I don't even know what to... Her hand reached for his. You are enough. He knelt beside her, holding her hand tightly. Her skin was warm, too warm. The light under her skin grew brighter with every heartbeat until her whole body shimmered with silver and gold. Sarah. She closed her eyes, her voice soft but steady. Do not be afraid, James. This is not pain. It is creation. Then the air around them began to hum, a deep, low sound like the breath of the universe. The sand beneath her body began to glow brighter, forming small patterns that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. James held her hand, helpless, terrified, and awed all at once. A beam of soft light rose from Sarah's body, twisting and swirling in the air. The hum grew stronger. The light brightened until James had to shield his eyes, and then silence. When he looked again, Sarah lay still, her skin pale and calm. In her arms was a small, glowing form wrapped in soft light. A baby, tiny, perfect, breathing. Its skin was a soft golden hue, somewhere between human and Alari. Its eyes, when they slowly opened, shimmered like both of theirs. One silver, one brown. Sarah smiled weakly, tears of light running down her cheeks. "She lives," she whispered. James knelt beside her, his voice trembling. "Sarah, she's beautiful." The baby reached out a small hand, touching James's finger. Her touch was warm and pulsing with faint energy, like holding the spark of a star. Sarah watched them both, her expression peaceful but tired. "Do you feel it?" she whispered. "She carries both of us, and something more." James nodded, tears blurring his vision. "She's everything we hoped for." Sarah's breathing grew shallow. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing softly. "James, my body cannot hold both energies. Alari are not made to create as humans do." He shook his head, panic flooding him. "No, don't say that. You're going to be fine. We'll find help. She pressed a finger to his lips. "Listen, don't cry, human, I am not dying. I am returning. My light will live in her, in both of you." Her words broke him. "Sarah, please." She smiled, weak but full of love. "Take care of her. Teach her what it means to feel, to love. That is what your kind brings to the stars." Her hand trembled once, then went still. Her eyes dimmed, turning from silver to soft gray. Her light faded slowly, gently, like a star finally resting after burning too long. James held her as she grew cold, tears falling freely. Around him, the sand began to glow softly again, not in mourning but in peace. The baby stirred in his arms, cooing softly. When he looked down, she was smiling. The light from her small body flickered and spread outward, wrapping both of them in a gentle glow. James whispered, voice shaking, "You're her, aren't you?" "You're both of us." The baby made a small sound and almost like laughter. The light around them pulsed, warm and full of life. James held her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'll protect you," he whispered. "For her. For all of us." Outside the shelter, the violet sky shimmered brighter, and the quiet hum of the planet deepened, as if the world itself had welcomed its newest child. And in that moment, far away from every starship and every law of two great civilizations, something impossible had been born, a life that belonged to no single world but to the universe itself. Years passed on the quiet violet moon. Seasons came and went, not with snow or rain but with light. The sky changed color like breathing, soft gold at dawn, deep blue at night. And beneath that endless glow, James Carter raised the child of two worlds. He named her Leora, after a word from Sarah's language. It meant light that remembers. She grew fast, stronger and wiser than any child he had ever known. By the time she was 5, she could speak both English and Alari fluently. She could also hear things James could not. Whispers in the wind, songs in the sand, soft memories of her mother that still lived in the light around them. At night, when the stars filled the sky, she often asked about Sarah. "Was she like me, Papa?" James would smile sadly. "Yes, Leora, you have her eyes and her heart." She would touch his cheek and say, "And yours too. I can feel both." Sometimes when she laughed, James swore he could hear Sarah's voice echoing faintly through the air. It was as if the world itself remembered her. One day, Leora stood at the edge of the glowing valley, staring up at the horizon. "Papa, something is coming," she said quietly. James frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward the sky. "A ship, big, from the stars." He followed her gaze, and his heart stopped. Through the thin clouds, he saw it. A small glint of silver growing larger every second. He recognized that shape. Earth Command's vessel. They had found him. He turned to Leora quickly. "Go inside, sweetheart. Stay hidden." But she didn't move. Her small hand reached for his. "They want me, don't they?" He couldn't lie. "Yes." Leora looked up at him with calm, shining eyes. "Then let me talk to them." "Leora, no. They'll take you away. They'll try to..." They won't hurt me, she said softly. They'll understand. I'll make them understand. Before he could stop her, the ship descended. The engines roared, stirring up waves of glowing sand. The landing ramp opened, and armored soldiers stepped out, weapons ready. A woman in a dark uniform led them, Commander Ray. Her voice came through the translator. Lieutenant Carter, you are under arrest for desertion and genetic contamination of an alien species. Step away from the child. James stood protectively in front of Leora. She's not a contamination. She's life. Ray's eyes softened for a brief moment, then hardened again. You know the protocol, Carter. The hybrid must be contained. Then Leora stepped forward. Barefoot, calm, her golden-silver skin glowing faintly under the alien sun. The soldiers froze. When she spoke, her voice carried across the valley like music. I am not something to contain. I am what comes next. The air shimmered around her. Light rose from the ground, swirling gently like mist. The soldiers hesitated, lowering their weapons. Some of them fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the calm that flooded their minds. Leora looked up at Ray. You are afraid because you do not understand. But I can show you. She reached out a small hand and touched the commander's armor. For a moment there was silence. Then Ray gasped, her eyes wide. She saw flashes. Sarah's world. James's sacrifice. The love that created this child. The pain. The hope. She felt it all at once, not through words but through pure emotion. When Leora pulled her hand away, the commander's face was wet with tears. She's beautiful, Ray whispered. Leora smiled softly. So are you. Every human heart carries light. You just forget to see it. The soldiers stood motionless. No one dared to fire. No one could. James slowly stepped forward, eyes full of tears. She's your proof, he said hoarsely. Humanity and Alaria, we don't have to destroy each other. We can become something new. Ray looked at them both for a long moment. Then she turned to her team. Stand down, she ordered quietly. The soldiers obeyed. The engines powered down. The valley fell silent again. Ray looked at James. What will you do now? He smiled faintly, looking at Leora. We'll live. That's all we ever wanted. She nodded. Then live well, Carter. For all of us. The ship lifted off and disappeared into the sky, leaving only the whisper of wind and light. That night, James and Leora sat together under the stars. The air was warm, the sky calm. Leora leaned against him, resting her head on his arm. Mama's still here, she said softly. He smiled. I know. Leora looked up at the stars, her eyes glowing with the same soft silver as Sarah's once did. Do you think others will come? From both worlds? One day, he said. And when they do, they'll need someone to guide them. She looked at him, so young yet filled with something ageless. Then I'll be ready. James felt a deep peace in his chest. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. You already are, Leora, you already are. And above them, the stars shimmered brighter as if the universe itself had heard their promise. That from love, even across the cold distance of worlds, something eternal had begun, a child who carried light in her veins, a father who carried hope in his heart, and a mother whose memory shone in every dawn. The story of a human, an alien, and their child, the beginning of a new future written in starlight.